Alright, do we have a good stream? Let's start. Let's go. Copy the link. Alright, welcome once again to Solve the Market. We are now live once again for our Sunday session here at, of course, a YouTube live stream. We are not in Facebook anymore because for some reasons that we need to go along and play along with platforms that are censorship friendly or censorship not friendly, by the way, censorship resistant. Okay, so right now we are here in YouTube while it's good, okay, but eventually once it's bad, we're going to move someplace else, someplace where they the free flow of information is not hindered or regulated. So anyhow, today's topic, today's topic, before we start, I'm always looking at the wall clock. All right, 7:40. Actually, it's 1950 hours, so we're 10 minutes ahead of our usual time slot here at Solve the Market. So we're going to start early right now. And having said that, we're going to discuss about Bitcoin back society. Okay, those post-pandemic, post-war, post-central bank scenario. So we basically we all understand now that what's happening here, what's happening around us, the sufferings, the inequities, the all the negative things are not caused by nature. They are not caused by God or something else. It's caused by man. All right. So man has been inflicting sufferings upon himself for a very very long time. But it's not upon himself. Somebody else is doing it to him. Okay. So ito yung this is what we're going to discuss now. That is actually related to that. The Bitcoin back society, how this post-war, post-pandemic, and post-central bank will going to will be fixed by Bitcoin. Okay? So, paano nga ba? How it is going to happen? So, I'm not going to go through the technicalities of Bitcoin in one sitting or in one live stream because that's going to be a lifetime of learning. Bitcoin is not just a you don't attend a crash course on Bitcoin or cryptocurrency and then become an expert in Bitcoin. Okay? There's nothing like that. Bitcoin is a continuous learning until such time that okay, everyone else is using Bitcoin. It's being used as a primary medium of transaction rather than using the US dollars, which already has lost 95% of its value by printing more and more and more useless paper money. Okay, so yep, let's let's pay our what's that? Let's pay our slideshow and then do the talking for the rest of the night. All right. So there you go. I guess. No, not yet. I think. Yep, we have it. Okay, so Bitcoin backed society. Is it real? Is it going to be real? Do you believe it's going to happen? Well, we have more than enough of what's going on around. So I guess it's going to happen. Okay? I believe it's going to happen. So post-war, when we say post-war means okay. Right now we are in we are actually in an unrestricted warfare, which started uh, way back September 2019 when the first strain of this COVID-19 variant was released out in the open, and then subsequently during after 2 years, a lot of things has already been revealed, not by the mainstream media. Actually, the mainstream media and the government has been suppressing a lot of information from us. So meron ng lumalabas na it's not only Wuhan. The center of all this pandemic is coming from Ukraine. They have the Russians they are already complaining to the UN Security Council that US, NATO, and Ukraine are running or operating biolabs in Ukraine, and then they are infecting birds with COVID-19 and releasing them towards Russia. Okay, so ayun yung problema ni Putin. Ayun yung ma-issue ni Putin na that's why he's bombing Lugansk, Donbas, etc., etc. So it's not about invasion, it's not about destroying one country and annexating it. So walang ganong scenario, there's no agenda like that. Contrary to what the mainstream media is trying to project right now, that Russia is violating human rights, etc., etc., and Russia is invading Ukraine without justification. No, Russia isn't invading Ukraine without justification. Everything what happening now is justified. All right, the biolabs, they are being operated. They are producing more and more pathogens. For what? Why do you need to experiment on a lot of pathogens? Because you're producing bioweapons. So there's no need to experiment on pathogens for the sake of climate change, nature, etc., etc. You don't need to learn that. Okay, you don't need to study that. The only reason you're trying to study pathogens is you are going to produce a bioweapon. And right now, COVID-19 is being produced there and then being infected into birds and being flown into the open. So yun ang ginagawa nila doon. Ever since this unrestricted war was launched, or it's never declared but it was launched. Okay, why? Bakit nangyayari yun? Why is it happening? Because apparently from the Hunter Biden's laptop, they are running pedophilia, they are running child trafficking all across Ukraine. Yung Ukraine talaga, yun yung kanilang hotbed, or this is the haven kung saan nila ginagawa lahat ng kasamaan nila. So every abomination that is unthinkable, beyond our comprehension, yung kumbaga kung ano yung normal sa atin, sa kanila hindi. Okay, so the way they treat children, the way they extract the adrenaline from the children, from the traumatized children, because yung adrenaline ng traumatized children, that's the best that's the best quality of an adrenochrome. Okay, so yung pag-traumatize yung bata, the blood and the combination of the adrenaline ng bata na yon is the best quality for producing adrenochrome. And who consumes adrenochrome? Okay, these vague celebrities, VIPs that they want to stay young forever, so they are deluded into taking this adrenochrome. Okay, so and that's why Sean Penn was, if you know, Sean Penn was there initially when Ukraine was attacked. Diba? Kasi naputol yung supply niya ng adrenochrome. It's similar with the if you watch the movie or saw the movie American Gangster. si Frank, I think Frank Sullivan was played by Denzel Washington. He's running a drug trafficking from Vietnam to United States. Okay, so during that, this was happening during the Vietnam War. So ang ginagawa ni Frank was he's conspiring with other U.S. soldiers sa Vietnam. The U.S. soldiers were going to smuggle drugs from Cambodia, from neighboring countries, neighboring borders. Okay, and then they will going to smuggle cocaine, and then they will put that cocaine into the caskets or yung mga body bags ng mga namatay na sundalo, because from once they arrive in the US, hindi naman chine-check yung mga body bags in the caskets. Okay, so because out of respect, hindi nila ginagalaw yon, so nilalagay nila yung drugs doon, they smuggle that until Frank became so wealthy, and then until such time that the war is beginning to fade away, malapit na matapos yung gera, and he realized that the business is about to go down. So he went to Vietnam. Okay, he went to Vietnam to oversee the operations and how he will be able to continue the supply into the United States. Same thing with suddenly Sean Penn went into Ukraine upon the invasion daw. Okay, so in the guise of shooting a documentary film, pero that's not the whole agenda. Wala na yung adrenochrome supply. That's why look at Sean Penn right now. He's suddenly old. Okay, look at Sean Penn, look at his pictures right now. Sobrang tanda na niya because wala na siyang supply ng adrenochrome. Okay, so not only that, they are supplying other VIPs in Hollywood, and Hollywood is one of the most involved or in this conspiracy. This is no longer a conspiracy. This is no longer a conspiracy theory. This is already a conspiracy reality. What was conspiracy theory 2 years ago, it's actually a reality now, and many more are coming into the open. Maraming revelation this year will open up to a lot of revelation regarding what's happening in Ukraine, and we have to be thankful that Putin is actually doing something, smoking out the evil from where it is hiding. Okay, so this is what we call the unrestricted war. So once you get along na pick up mo yung unrestricted war, who is in what side, who is in the good side and in the wrong side of history, then you have to equate it in our local scenario. Nasaan ba yung gobyerno natin? Sino kakampi niya? Then you will realize where the money is moving in. Is it moving in sino bang nagpopondo kay Leni Robredo, sino nagpopondo kay BBM? But eventually it will go, once you do your own research, you will going to find some answers. Okay, so if you just seek and don't be lazy, because a lot of lazy people around the social media, okay, they will just ask you where's your proof, where's your link, where's your source, etc. That's not the right way to seek the truth. In order for you to seek the truth, you have to make an effort. You don't just ask like that. That's being lazy. You're just waiting for an information. Okay? If you really want to proactively seek the truth, you have to do your own research. You have to watch for the keywords. So right now, I gave you some few points: the unrestricted warfare, adrenochrome, and the post-war scenario. Okay, so from there you can connect the dots. Alright, so much for the post-war scenario. So after this war, it's going to be a domino. So we don't expect Ukraine to win this war. Okay, it's not going to be like Afghanistan or Vietnam. Okay, so we all know that Ukraine is being backed by an evil empire called the NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which doesn't really have a strong army to go against Russia. Okay? And they don't agree on a lot of things. And it doesn't exist anymore. It's only on paper and photographs and videos of them jumping off the planes, doing cross-country military exercise. But yeah, in real combat, those things, those stuff, it's not going to last. Alright, so then we have post-pandemic. We all know what's the truth about this pandemic. No? Kaya nga sinabi natin, it's all, what? Nag-centralized, it all started from Ukraine, but before that, ang press release lang sa atin was Wuhan. Pero yung the bigger or the deeper, the ice, actually the not the tip of the iceberg, but the bottom of the iceberg was Ukraine. Okay? Marami pa yan. There are more revelations coming in, like the tunnel networks, the dungeons, the bunkers being used to traffic children. Lalabas lahat yan. Okay? And it's sobrang sobrang unimaginable pagka once you read about it or discover it. And it's the truth that the mainstream media is suppressing. But eventually, justice will be served very, very soon. And this post-pandemic, if you are actually observing right now, we are easing out our restrictions, but cautiously. A lot of news or a lot of data coming out from the vaccine that is being suppressed in the past 1 year. Okay, like for example, they say the vaccine is safe and effective. That was 1 year ago. Now the data is showing otherwise. Hindi siya safe and effective, in short. So eventually the regulations surrounding the vaccines were going to change for the better. Okay, so walang for the worse yan. Okay, if you see anything for the worse, it's only a sign that the people in the wrong side of history are fighting a desperate war. So it's an act of desperation. Especially sa Pilipinas, once na bumalik ulit tayo sa alert level 3, we know that, okay, it's just a matter of time before something will collapse and revelation is going to come out and people will start questioning, start fighting, and start complaining and start resisting. So hindi mangyayari yung permanent na alert level 2, alert level 3, nilalaro tayo ng gano'n. So it's not going to last forever. Yung tao, they will realize, they will learn, they will adapt, and then they will resist, then they will fight. And that's what the governments and the central bankers don't want to happen. That's why we had the post-central bank scenario. So now we're going to the post-central bank. Sila lahat ang may kalokohan nito. This is all their fault. Okay? The pandemic, the war, they're just trying to distract us. Okay? From the real problem of this world. Sila yung talagang may problema. Okay? Because these central banks all over the world is controlled by one big mafia, the Rothschilds family. So sila talaga yung may control na. They are the one who's really in control. Who are really in control of the central banks. No, kahit sa Pilipinas, kunyari meron tayong central bank governor, but if we are actually borrowing money from the IMF, from World Bank, and then we can't graduate from them, okay, then we are actually under control of the Rothschilds family. And this Rothschilds family are part of the Khazarian mafia, the Khazar mafia that I've been mentioning several times long way back. Okay, so ayaw nilang mabuking, okay? Because all this problem that we have is caused by central banking. Okay? Wala namang iba. If we just put $1 to if we put, let's say, we buy 1 kilo of sugar as $1, what's the point of having $2 for a kilo of sugar after 5 years or after 1 year? Diba? Bakit nagtataas ang cost? Why the cost is going up? Why things are getting expensive? Or why the cost of living is always going up? That is inorganic. Okay? Hindi natural 'yon. It's not natural for an economy or a society that will just keep on fighting for its life with what the standard, the cost of living, trying to adapt to the cost of living. Okay, so for example, 20 years ago, the Big Mac is what, just 50 pesos, right? Now Big Mac right now is 200 pesos. So in the next 5 years, the Big Mac is about 500 pesos. And then they are just what, they are educating us that this is the way, of life as far as what, economy is concerned. So yun yung tinuturo nila sa school, sa finance, mga financial institution, ganun ang buhay natin. That's wrong, okay? It shouldn't be that way. Dapat meron ka lang fixed na cost dun sa buhay mo, no? And this is why Bitcoin is going to fix that. And they don't like that. Okay, then ayaw nila na nabubuking sila because, for example, next, okay, a Bitcoin-backed society fixes everything. There will be no inflation. Bakit ba tayo may inflation? Ano pag na-realize nyo to, bakit tayo may, you have to start asking these questions, especially if you're attending stock seminars, investment seminars. They just talk about inflation by FOMOing, by fear of missing out. When somebody is trying to sell you an investment product, insurance, etc. So ang lagi nilang pitch sa'yo is kailangan mag-invest ka sa product na to product A, product B, because the inflation is going to be like this, going to be like that in the next 5 years. Now, bakit wala nagtatanong? Why no one is asking, why do we have inflation in the first place? Okay? Why do we have inflation in the first place? Bakit tayo may inflation? The reason we have inflation is because a central bank or a central banker is forcing us to use its money. Okay? So, nung pinanganak tayo, namulat tayo, ang tinuro sa atin, kailangan natin magbayad sa isang, if we want something, we have to pay for it. And we have to pay for it using somebody else's money. The central banker's money, the legal tender. Kasi hindi naman yan, di ba, pagka binasa mo yung, let me get a peso bill. Wala na sa kotse. But di ba sa Tagalog, let me get a 100. If you look at the $100 bill, ang salaping ito ay bayarin ng what? Bayarin ng Republika ng Pilipinas. So you don't own the money, right? It's owned by the central bank. Ikaw ginagamit mo lang yung pera. You don't own the money. Okay? So you also pay the cost for using that money. For example, if I buy something at 10 pesos, no? 10 pesos, how much does it cost? Yung 10 pesos na yun, it could probably cost you 2% plus. Kasi once na sinabi ng central bank, ang inflation natin is 2% in the next 1 year, then ang cost nung pagbayad mo, nung paggamit mo ng pera nila is 2%. How do they charge that? Through taxes. Alright? Gets me na? So, sila Rothschilds, kaya sila yumayaman ng yumayaman is because they are scamming us. They are scamming us with their central banking mechanism. Okay? So, the central banking mechanism is what Hjalmar Schacht, the central bank governor of the Nazi Germany back then, he called this the magic of money. Okay? So, anong klaseng math ang ginagamit ng central bank to decide how much inflation should be raised year on year? How did they come up with the 2%? How did they come up with the 10%? How did they come up with the 15%? There is no math in that. There is no true math in that. Okay? Lahat ng math nila, gawa-gawa lang nila yun. Okay? Kwentong barbero lang yun. So let's say, okay, pitik sa hangin lang, 2% tayo next year, 15% tayo kasi ganito, ganyan. We need to print more money so that we can cover the cost of people using our money. Okay, so that's how Rothschilds are enriching themselves. They don't produce anything. Okay, kung in a large in a bigger picture, they are all parasites. This Rothschilds family, the Khazarian mafia, they did nothing but to destroy humanity. Okay, so this Khazarian mafia itself, kaya galit na galit sa mga Russians dyan. Okay, because the Bolshevik revolution was also funded by them. They pretended, these Khazars, they pretended to be communists, and then they pretended to be the Bolsheviks. So they got into Russia. They were able to seize power from the Tsar of Russia, Tsar Romanov, or Tsar Alexander. Nakuha nila yung power. Sila yung naging government, and then what? Russia, they destroyed the Russian agricultural system. The Russian agricultural system was one of the most efficient system in the world. It was able to feed half of the world. Actually, yung Russian agricultural system, it was actually feeding half of the world, Europe and North Asia, and so forth. Okay, so they destroyed that. The Bolshevik revolution, the Bolsheviks or the Khazarian mafia, they destroyed that system. And what happened? Millions were starved to death. Okay, it's called the Holodomor. Holodomor. Just mix it up. One word, Holodomor is execution by starvation. So they murdered millions. The Khazar mafia, they murdered millions, more than what Hitler did to the Jews. Okay. So ano yan, pag kinonect mo, it's a recorded history, but you have to connect all the information yourselves. Okay? So yun. May nangyari talagang famine sa Russia, not because it is the fault of the Russian Tsar. Okay? Hindi yun fault ni Romanov. Although if you read the Western history, nagutom ang mga Russians because of the Romanov family. It's not true. They suffered because of the Bolsheviks, which are connected to the Khazars, which are connected to the Rothschilds, okay, which are connected to the central banking system. Okay, so ano pa ba yung kinokos ng central banking? There will be no tax. Okay, so once Bitcoin by society has been established, it can fix everything. So no inflation. Okay, nag-start tayo sa inflation. Yung inflation kasi, the reason it's happening is because we people has to pay someone to use their money, in which we don't need to do that. Okay? And then they keep on doing that. They keep on raising the inflation rate so that they can enrich themselves, while we, the people, the middle, the 95%, okay, has to work our butt off until we die. Keep on paying them the inflation rate, di ba? And the taxes. Okay, so doon nila dinadala yon sa taxes. So if you don't really pay taxes, hindi naman malulugi ang gobyerno eh. Okay, actually the people can live among themselves without paying somebody taxes. Okay, hindi totoo yung sinasabing there are two things you cannot avoid: death and taxes. You can avoid taxes if you only know how to think, if you only know how to question. Okay? So, yung gobyerno, ayaw nilang pag-aralan, ayaw nilang matutunan mo yan. So, once inflation is out, what else? Do you know what caused the Great Depression? Diba? Kasi lahat sumobra na yung the Great Depression was caused by the Great Inflation, the hyperinflation. Diba sa US during the 1920s, they call it the stock market crash. Pero whether the stock market crashes or not, walang kinalaman dun yung Great Depression. Hindi yun yung totoo. That's not the real story about the Great Depression, because not all Americans are investing in the stock market during the 1920s, during that Great Depression. Most of the Americans are actually saving in banks. They are not investing in stocks. They are saving in banks. They are planting their own what? They are planting their own garden. They have their own garden that grow fruits, vegetables, and then they raise their own cattle, they raise their own poultry. So that's what most Americans are, where during the Great Depression. So yung Great Depression, nangyari yan din sa mga mostly may mga savings sa bangko that they cannot, that their money has no more value anymore. Wala nang, so nung Great Depression, your $100 doesn't mean anything anymore. Magbenta ka na ng kotse mo na binili mo ng $100 that time, you can only sell that for $20 or $10. Wala nang value, or even your money itself, there's not much to buy anymore because the cost of living is so high. No? So how did they fix the Great Depression? Paano nila inayos siya? They went to war with Europe. Okay? The Great Deal. Okay? Sabi ni sinong presidente yan? Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, the Great Deal. They fixed their own depression by what? By starting the Second World War. Which again, the Khazarians, the Rothschilds, was what? Funding both sides of the war. So he's funding the Nazis and he's funding the Allied forces, the Allied nations. Okay, so Bitcoin will going to fix that. But once Bitcoin has fixed the depression, wala na ring war, okay? Kasi there's no way out of the depression except what? By what do you call that? Fooling or conning people to say that, okay, we have to go to war with Germany back then because they are what? They are oppressing the Jews and we need to go to war to them, against them. We have to topple them, but the real agenda is to get their money, to get their gold. Yun ang totoong agenda nun. Same thing when the US invaded Iraq. It's not about really the weapons of mass destruction. US is just after the gold. Okay? They're just after the Iraqi gold. Because the Rothschilds are after the gold itself. Because the Rothschilds control the Federal Reserve, which does not have that much gold reserve. Okay, right now. They need to invade Iraq. They need to invade Syria. They need to invade what? Lebanon, Libya. Okay, they need to kill Gaddafi. Kasi yung mga yun, may mga gold yun. That's not, let's forget, these wars are never fought because of altruism. When we say altruism, for a noble cause. Walang ganun sa mga gera na nangyari in the last 100 years. Okay, it's all about Rothschild. It's all about the Rothschilds funding one nation against other nation. So pinaglalaban niya lang yun. So go look at that up in YouTube, the Rothschilds family. Merong movie ton. They started doing that with ever since the Battle of Waterloo. He founded the army of Napoleon. Also he founded the British Army, which they have been doing until now. Okay? And Putin has to put a stop on that. So that's why don't pray for Ukraine, because if you pray for Ukraine, you're supporting pedophilia and satanism. Ganun lang kasimple. So there will be no more recession once you fix everything from the central bank. Wala nang recession because it's one-to-one. Everything is one-to-one. Walang you don't need to pay someone to adjust to your cost of living. Okay? So wala na ring recession because your salary, yung sweldo mo is good enough. What? It's good enough for you to survive and thrive with whatever the economic situation is. Actually, the economic situation will improve once we remove the central banking. No more unemployment because there's proof of work sa Bitcoin. So the only way you will be unemployed in a Bitcoin-backed society is what? Is when you're not transacting with Bitcoin. Okay? Gets nyo na? Hindi pa? Okay, so ito na yan. So, like I said, Bitcoin-backed society fixes everything. Proof of work versus UBI. You know what's UBI? It's a Universal Basic Income. And yung, that's what the World Economic Forum is pitching to the world, universal basic income. So aside from if you're unemployed, you still get an income, but basic. But in exchange to that, you have to what? You have to give up your privacy, your liberty, and everything. So you don't need to work. Meron kang basic income. That is good for a lot of people. That is suitable sa kanila at tingin nila that's attractive. But that's a dangerous proposition. A very dangerous proposition actually. It's slavery to the maximum, to the highest level. So we will not going to have the UBI. Rather, we will going to have a proof of work. How? Okay. First, you have to understand how to do a Bitcoin mine, how to do Bitcoin mining, because Bitcoin mining itself is work. Okay, it's work by its own right. Okay, so if you have a mining rig at home, you're already what? You're already earning income. You're already self-generating an income. And sky's the limit. Okay, why? Sky's the limit because if you once you understand how Bitcoin mining works, one Bitcoin mining rig is not enough. You're going to set up more Bitcoin mining, probably somewhere in your basement, in your attic, no, maybe 2 or 3, because someday hindi na nagmamatter whether Bitcoin is $44,000, one Bitcoin is $50,000, and then one Bitcoin will go suddenly $1,000. Hindi na nagmamatter yung ganung scenario because the central bank no longer exists. The central bank already collapsed, and you're just using Bitcoin to do everything. Okay, so no restrictions because wala nang central bank, wala nang gera, wala nang pandemic. Okay, no restrictions. The government cannot restrict Bitcoin. The government cannot regulate Bitcoin, and no one can censor Bitcoin. No matter what they do, no matter what a tyrannical government will try, it cannot touch Bitcoin. Okay? And then the more mining rigs and lightning node networks you are running, the more you are delivering proof of work. No, you're not playing somebody's game. You're not playing someone's Axie Infinity or shit like that. You're doing actual work, protecting the Bitcoin network, because that is the lifeblood of your freedom and your liberty and your self-preservation. Alright, so something's off. Anyway, mali yung question on next slide. But anyway, let's continue. When do you run a mining rig at home? When you're running a mining rig at home, that should be the heading. Okay? So, so you have a village, and you have a village where people are actually running mining rig and lightning networks at home. First, proof of work will pay for itself. Okay? Paano nangyari yun? Siyempre, nagmamine ka, you're gonna earn satoshis. You're not gonna, even if you're not mining a block yet, if you haven't mined the block yet, you're already earning satoshis by securing the network. Satoshis is just what? 0.00001 Bitcoin. Right now, hindi mo mapansinin yun. Okay? But once one Satoshi is $1, it's going to matter. And then you're going to what? You're going to set up as many mining rigs as you can when that happens. So pay the bill. Pays the bill. Yeah. So when you're running a Bitcoin mining at home, ito yung scenario. This is the scenario that I'm envisioning, or I'm not going to predict this, but this is what's going to happen. So you have a mining rig, And then that mining rig is earning, and at the same time, it's automatically paying your electric bills, your phone bills, your internet bills, whatever utilities you have. It's all being, once you mine something, you earn something, you don't pay taxes anymore, no? Binabayaran mo na kagad yung things that matters to you, and even your groceries actually, dinededuct niya na from your earnings. So ganun ang mangyayari doon. So there will be no more credit cards kasi you don't need to borrow money because what? You're earning from your mining rigs. Why do you need to borrow money? You don't need to borrow capital. So meaning the old notion of capitalism, that the one we learned from the Jews, the one we learned from the Rothschilds, no longer matters or no longer true na kailangan mong umutang to raise capital. So hindi na mangyayari sa Bitcoin yan because you're not Bitcoin society, because you're already what? You're already earning your own Bitcoin through mining and Lightning node network. Okay, so imagine that's why I put up this village. Imagine every neighbors you got there. May mining rig. They have individual mining rig, and then they're mining from their homes. Then no one is in poverty anymore. Kasi if you're still poor by this time, meaning you're not doing your part or your POW, you're not doing your proof of work. You are not contributing to the proof of work. No one is going to be neglected. Walang mapapabayaan, okay? Because everyone is what? Everyone is earning just the same. Not in the amount, or not in the value. Because if you only have one mining rig at home and your neighbor has two mining rigs at home, then definitely your neighbor is wealthier than you are. Diba? Ganun lang yun eh. So mangyayari niya, maglalaban-laban kayo who mines the most Bitcoin in the next 100 years. So ano mangyayari doon? You're not going to engage in any kinetic war anymore. So no more kinetic wars. What's the use of kinetic wars? What's the use of physical army when you have this scenario? Okay, so this is not something that is far-fetched. This is something that is very very possible, and the only people that are scared of this happening are the central bankers, who is in control of every government in the world, who is actually hindi naman sila unidentified. They are the Khazarian mafias. They have a human face. Okay? Then if you want something you don't have, then contribute to make the Bitcoin standard more secure. Okay, so if you want to buy a Lamborghini, if you want to buy a yacht, diba? Then one Bitcoin mining rig is not enough. You have to set up a mining farm, or a mining complex, things like that. Okay? If you want something you don't have. So hindi ka mang-aangkin ng territory ng kapitbahay mo. Hindi ka manggegera, you're not going to engage in a kinetic war once more so that you have to push your own agenda. Wala nang ganon. Paramihan na lang tayo ng mining rig. Alright? And at the end of the day, every household is something like this. So, ano na sa picture? Diba? The man with the golden goose that lays the golden egg. Just don't kill the golden goose. Yun lang ang rule niyan. Okay? So, at the end of the day, every household is something like this. There will be prosperity for everyone. Those who actually believe or buy into this scenario. But somehow, there are people who are stuck in the matrix and they will fight for what? They will fight for it. Diba? They are so assimilated to the system, they are so assimilated to the matrix that they will going to fight for it. But we will just going to let it happen because Bitcoin will going to fix them. Bitcoin will fix them, definitely. Alright, so I guess that's something Yep. It's an hour or maybe 45 minutes of talking. So once again, just like that, thank you for watching Soul of the Market. See you next Sunday. I am now ending my transmission.